Welcome to Iron and Ceremony, Librarius Omnis, where we explore the depths of the Black Library.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Iron and Ceremony present Librarius Omnis, and this is part 3 of part 1 of book 7 of Legion. It's very confusing, as is the book. It's all a mystery. I'm John, and as always, I'm joined by Shane. How you doing?
Hello.
Mate?
All good, thank you. All good.
Cool. So, as I say, we are well and truly into Legion now. We're coming to sort of the climactic chapters on Nurth now. We've got a lot of questions raised. I think hopefully we should start getting a couple of answers, at least by the end of this section.
Yeah.
So where are we at now? What are we going into?
Let's see. So where we left it was Sonica has he's in the desert, isn't he, with Hatato Bronzy, and one of the Ultramars in like a little desert hut area, and we believe he could be speaking to, we don't know, but he could be speaking to our main man Librarius, or at least the closest hint we've got that is actually him. And the whole kind of Hydra double agent or operatives of the Alpha Legion are kind of has been unveiled to Petto Sonica a little bit, so he's more clued in, but still not, that clued in. At the same time, the Lucifer Blacks, they've had one of their members killed, one of the retinue killed, back at the feasting encampment, or the encampment where the main force is situated, killed by an unknown assailant to them. Obviously a skilled assailant that's managed to take one of their elite troopers down by hand, and that's left them a little bit perplexed, but also under under more secure or a more secure sort of mindset. And little do we know that we know ourselves that the agent involved, John Grammaticus or Connor Kenneker, depending on who you're speaking to, and any number of hetmen as well, depending on who he's speaking to at that time, has fled the scene, and he's in taking down the Lucifer Black has probably messed himself up a little bit. Like, he's definitely at least bruised his hands, or at least that's the way it's left. So off he trots. That's where we left it. Obviously, what's happened in the rest of the book up to this point is very quick over cap. Is that it's a planet under compliance, or under a compliance campaign. The adversaries are a human race called the Nurth, who are purveyors of chaos, but known as air magic, which has meant that air support and things like that has proved they haven't been able to use it. So the Astra Militar and the Imperial Guard, they've been struggling along for a while now, trying to try and make the planet compliant. They are in the last theatre of war, which is Monlo Harbour, which seems to be the last bastion of the Nurth, and they're now expecting, the Alpha Legion have made themselves aware, so they're now expecting the Alpha Legion to help them finally crush the Nurth and complete the compliance within the next week or so. And that's kind of where we're up to as we go into the last third of the first half of the book.
Yeah. That is rapid fire.
Yes.
Roundup. So if you just joining us now, go back and watch parts 1 and 2 for a bit more context. Cool. So before we get into part 3 of part 1, just a bit more of self-promotion. We are now on Patreon. We just have the 1 level at the minute. And if you are enjoying what we're doing and would like to support us and help us get to the next level, better equipment, and help us make it easier to get battle reports and videos out. You can subscribe to us for £5 a month, and for that, just as a thank you, at the end of our videos when we do our credit roll, we'll have like a list of honor for our Patreon, so we can shout out your social medias or just pop your name on there or whatever you like. Within reason, we'll pop you on there. And then we also recently became affiliated to Element Games. So as you can see at the top, you can see our link on any of our videos. The link will be there. If you're going to go buy something from Element Games, they give you a discount anyway. And if you use our link, you're just sort of telling them where you came from, how you found them, and we'll get a little bit of a kickback from them. It won't cost you anything extra. It just helps us out again. So if you don't want to subscribe to us but want to help and you're going shopping anyway, maybe do it that way.
Exactly.
That'd be much appreciated. And without further ado, we will jump into chapter... No, not 7.
Not 7, number 9.
Not 8, number 9. There we go. And yes, as you can see, if you're watching along, we have our cheat sheet out to help us try and remember some names.
Yeah.
And as we've said, we've raised a lot of questions. We want to get some answers. I have one question for you, Shane. I didn't do the homework. Did you find out who Pius belongs to?
No, I didn't actually. No, I was hoping it was going to come up in the. I was hoping it was going to come up in the listen along I did today. But unfortunately, it didn't come up. So no. It was a bit of a shame because I was listening for all of the different various names, and there were the jokers, there were the clowns, there was obviously the dancers came up again, the carnivales, and there was one other that came up today as well that I'd forgotten about, and I can't remember it now for the life of me. But I was like, I must remember that. But no, that's gone as well.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the ones that Pius was part of.
All but yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't. I just remembered as we were going through, so I thought I'd jump it out there.
Yeah,
anyway,
no, I didn't.
So failures aside, we'll move on. So we are still at Monlow Harbour on Nurth, and it is just before the evening dawn the next day. So by the next day, we mean last night. We saw John Grammaticus fighting for his life with the Lucifer Black, and he mangled himself up pretty bad. Managed to kill the guy, but he's pretty beat up, and he's decided to abandon his mission, and he's fled to the desert.
He has,
and he fell down into some shelter, got some sleep, and had another dream of being eaten by dragons. And then when he wakes up, the adrenaline's worn off. I think his feeling is 1,000+ years.
His core temperature's dropped from sleeping rough, so it's kind of, he can't move some of his fingers. He can't touch the back of his head because he's got some sort of wound or contusion, I think, on it. And generally, he's not feeling particularly sorry for himself. Oh, and he's busted across the nose as well, so his eyes are all swollen. So he's in a pretty sorry state. Yeah,
and he's sort of weighing up his options now of where to go next. He can escape Nurth, return to the Cabal in failure and hope that they don't execute him. Or he can escape and try and live out the rest of his life, but knowing that he's going to have to evade the Cabal. Or he can just hang around and die in the desert, which he doesn't want to do. So he decides option 1 is his best. And luckily, he's prepared for such a situation and has a number of emergency caches in various points in the desert. So he heads off to one that he knows the location of. I don't think it's too far. It's like down in a wadi near like a pool of water. And what he's done is dug into the wall of this wadi emergency bag with some rations and stuff in. So he finds it, digs it out, and he's got rations, food, water, medical supplies, change of clothes, and he's also got a new fake identity kit prepared.
A couple of different ones, isn't he?
Yeah, and what he's going to do is keep some of his injuries the way they are, call in an imperial rescue craft, and sneak on board using the identity and the identity he has in this bag is one of a Pato Sonica. I'll start that again. The identity he has is one of a Pato Sonica.
Yep.
But by the time anyone realizes who he is, he will be off of that ship and onto the next one and onto the next fake identity. And while he's sitting there considering his actions, he just sort of moans out loud, "I'm a coward." And then he hears a voice answer back saying, "Yes, you are." Which obviously is a bit of a shock because he's been trying to get hold of the Cabal for some time to no joy. And then he looks down into the water and sees the reflection of a Cabal member called Slaudar.
Slaudar, indeed, yeah.
Who is an Ortec of the Eldari. Is that right?
He is indeed, yeah. Or Altark, yeah.
Altark. And he's got his companion, like some gross insectoid-looking creature who acts as translator for him.
Yeah. Even though he doesn't need him.
No, he doesn't. But the guy, they go through with the pantomime anyway, and they sort of ask him why he's quitting. He's so close to reaching the goal, and he just says he can't do it anymore. Right? He's failed. He's out.
Yeah, he's compromised. You know, why can't they use a different legion? Why can't they the Cabal don't need to do it? You know, maybe the Alpha Legion isn't the right way. How can they he's just got he's compromised and he can't do this. He can't keep going. And that's what he says in a short manner. And then like all good Eldar, and any race in the 40k universe actually, they decide, the Autarch Slaudar decides to be a little bit belittling to him, and out comes with the Monkey slur, which is the Eldari name for humankind, Monkey. Very close to the bone, not too original. But obviously, it riles John a little bit. And they have a bit of a back and forth where he's talking through the interpreter and, John keeps just switching to Eldari because he's like, you don't need to talk through like this with me. But what's revealed in this dialogue and this conversation, which is nice because it's some answers, is that the Cabal have been testing each of the legions over many years. Like I think they even mentioned hundreds of years because I can't remember how long the Great Crusade's been going on at this point. Starting with the Dark Angels, and finding that each legion has been corrupted to some degree by their speed at which they've been ramped up for war and for the Crusades, and this is potentially corrupted them to the influence of the primordial annihilator. So it has to be the Alpha Legion because they are the newest, they are untainted, they are open to reason and cold logic, whereas all of the others have some taint or some corruption that means that for whatever reason they have no, the Cabal cannot use them in the way they want to.
Yeah, and if you remember back on Descent of Angels, where Zahariel first went out into the woods looking for the great beast, the lion of Endrago, and he was going through that corrupted forest, and the voices came out, and he didn't really get a good look at them, but they were saying he had the taint on him, so probably the Cabal.
I don't know. I think they were the Watchers. I don't know if they're the
Watchers.
Same.
No, not the same.
I don't think they're the same because the Watchers are still part of Dark Angel's lore now.
Okay.
So I think they are separate entities. But it's a nice idea. I hadn't put them together. That's yeah. I suppose that's the trouble is that because I know the forward spoilers, I would never have made that link.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, it does. It's a nice narrative. Yeah. It would be nice if they'd done that, but no, the Watchers are not.
So it's not quite as tied together as I thought it was.
No.
All right, fair enough. But somebody else has recognised the taint in the Dark Angels before they were even incepted. So
yes, yeah.
So it supports the Cabal's theory.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think, yeah, I mean, the Dark Angel side of it, I think, is they have the taint on the home world, right?
Yeah.
So the home world of Caliban, and therefore any Marines that are probably collected there. I think the Cabal. Well, what I read into it was more that the Cabal, like it's like the corruption has not only come from, maybe in that instance where it's the home world itself, but corruption's also come from like the flaws in the gene seed itself, in the speed at which they've had to expand for war, and that's led to rushing to increase the size of these legions, and that's led to more room for corrupted individuals and corrupted gene seed to flourish.
Okay, so like diluting the source, basically.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, it was a good theory.
Brilliant. Very nice.
And all right, cool. So the other thing that we see from this scene is like when John gets the ump with the Eldar, he tells him to piss off and stop flexing him, and turns to walk around and has a bit of a shock because he's actually not alone and they weren't flexing him. And he's come in person. And John does go for his gun in fear for his life, but he's too slow. He gets pinned down by the throat, and he's absolutely he's stunned. Like these guys don't come in person.
They don't expose themselves. There's no it's a bit like when we go back to Namatjira coming down to the ground. Like from his point of view, they just don't do it. And it's the same with the Cabal. They would never expose themselves in this way unless it's at the utmost importance.
Yeah. And they just explain like, look, this is serious, and I think this gives John a bit of a kick to realise, if they're here, then something's going on.
Yeah.
And they say that they've seen the future. They've been allowed to enter the Black Library, and they've seen the future is set.
That's what they were saying, wasn't it? Is that you've got the autarch. He believes in this, he knows it, and he let the Cabal into the Black Library, even though it's like, it's like the ultimate sin for the Eldari to let anyone into their Black Library. So he did it because he knows how important this is, and what I think the translator's trying to say, his name, Garrett, what he's trying to say to John is that this is how serious it is. Because this is Slaudar went against his entire race by letting the Cabal see the Black Library to prove to confirm what was happening, and that they'd selected Nurth to demonstrate that to the Alpha Legion, so that it would be a good demonstration of chaos and the powers of chaos. But it turns out, and this is what they reveal to John at this point, it turns out that maybe it was too good a demonstration.
And the last bit, they tell him the reason that it's so dire is because of something that the Nurthi actually have in their possession, which is a black cube.
Yep.
What is a black cube? Do we find that out later, or do we?
All we know is that it is it's like a chaos artifact. So so we don't know. We don't find out in the book any more about it. Like this is what it is. What we can probably assume, based on where 40k goes and everything, it's probably in the same way that you have a black stone fortress, and it's made from and the Necron artifacts as well. Is that it's probably made? It's obsidian. A chaos artifact or materials probably made from the same black stone as the black stone fortresses, and is therefore a weapon of mass destruction, but a chaos tainted weapon.
Fun times ahead.
Indeed.
Yeah. So panic stations, and I think John is brought back on side from that. And we move on to chapter 10, which is later that morning, and we join Hon and Moo and her aides as they head to another morning briefing, and her aides giving her some updates of the night's events and say some small bands of Nurthing raiders have been trying to break the line or testing the lines, but nothing serious has happened. And there's also rumours going around that an enemy spy was driven away after trying to breach the command tent. And there's another rumour going around that a Lucifer Black was killed, but that's being denied. But security has been ramped all the way up.
Level 6, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and now the Lucifers have been tasked with a full army security purge. And obviously Honan and her Gene Whip Boone are already suspicious of Roxana, and they're already conducting their own investigation, which now ramps the urgency of that up, because if they're right and they don't discover this flaw before anybody else, then they're all for it.
Yeah.
And they sort of vow to sort her out. So she, on the way to the meeting, she bumps into Boone, who actually tells her about the incident in Roxana's chambers and bumping into Pius, and then leaving and seeing Pius again and not being able to work out what's going on. And said that Pius was hanging out with Sonica, who's also been acting weird, and they tried to talk to him nicely, but he fought them and fled. And they didn't see who saved him, but they suspect that he's been working with the spy.
Yeah.
And he's certain that Pius and Sonica are the spies. So Honan takes him in hand and takes him up onto the roof. And to our surprise, both Bronzy and Sonica are actually up there waiting already. And Boone just pulls his gun and immediately starts putting him under arrest. And Holomu tells him to chill out and listen up. And we get a good alibi here.
We do.
Where they basically convince him and say that like Sonic has been suffering from combat fatigue after the decimation of his company. He's been stressed out and out of his mind, and that's why he's been acting a bit off. And Bronzy brought him back to explain things to Moo, who's then in turn sent him off to get medically cleared.
He's got his papers, hasn't he?
Yeah, and he's got his excuses written down for him, and it's all been put to bed. And they've said they're going to investigate Pius because they suspect that he might be the spy as well. And Boone, he accepts this because obviously he's got no reason to doubt Holland. And she turns, once he leaves, she says to Bronzy and Sonica, do you actually think that Pius is the spy? And they say no. Not for a second. He's a good friend. We know him. He's definitely not in on it. But they are actually unsure about Roxana. And they're going to look into that. So Holland says, because Shivan died, the clowns are now without a het. So temporarily, while they get things sorted, and she's going to assign Sonica to take over there. And she says, right, now, before anything else, we're going to sort out the issues within this regiment before the Lucifer Blacks do. She's got some work to do, and she leaves the two on the roof. And then they both turn to each other and say they did a good job of fooling everybody. And now they're going to crack on with the real orders that they've been given. And Sonica tells Bronzy that he's not going to betray the Geno 5.
No.
And he definitely doesn't want to do anything to hurt or get Hon and Moo in trouble. And they move on with their task.
Yeah, Bronzy sort of says we're agreed on that. He's sort of happy in that regard. But it's quite interesting because and you might have this written down somewhere, I can't remember, but the Geno 5-2 Chiliad, they have like the saying where it's like company before something, company before Imperium, Gene before, yeah. Something like that.
No, I haven't got it written down.
You know what I'm talking about, though.
They have this.
They have this moniker, and I think it's at this point that Sonica says it to like Bronzy. Says like, what doesn't that doesn't that mean anything anymore? And Bronzy sort of says like, it's just something we say because now he's, as far as he's concerned, he's now working directly for the Emperor. That's what he says. He's like, you know, this is a being that I've lived my life in service of. And now I'm working for his chosen, the Astartes. It's like, so all of your, you know, the gene before company business, you know, that's fine. That's something we say, but you know, this is the best thing I could be doing because I'm doing his work. And it's quite an interesting bit between the two, because although they've been besties throughout this entire story up to this point, it's definitely causing some stress because Bronzy's taken to this operative thing quite well. Like he's a charismatic guy. He can sort of turn it on and convince people to his way, like Boone and people like that. Whereas it's a bit of a test for Sonica, who can't quite, you know, he's a much more up and down type chap, and he struggles with the subterfuge.
He's very, like, compared to Bronzy, like Sonic has literally just stepped into it the day before.
Yes, this is true.
And we don't know quite how long Bronzy's been in it. Has he been in it since he met the Astartes at the RV point? Was he in it prior to coming to Visages?
You know what? It's never really clear, is it? It never really, you know, they never really say. I mean, it's a good point. Although I think on first reading of the book, you would take it as he's not aware of it until he gets the corpse and he's going to take it and he speaks to who he thinks is Hononmu on the Vox.
Yeah.
And like, you know, you could take it that's it, but actually you're quite right. He may have been operative for a lot longer. From
that first time he met Alfaris while he was having a wee. Could have been there for all we know.
Yeah.
But like you say, he whatever it is, even if he's only been there for the day, he's taken on it in his stride. He's enjoying it.
Yeah.
So those two are now off to crack on, and elsewhere we've got Dinas Chain, who's meditating and going over all the facts so far and trying to piece together all the pieces. And he decides this spy must be hiding in plain sight and have a role somewhere within the regiment where no one really questions you. And the best way to be a spy is to be a spy.
Indeed, it's a stroke of genius.
Yeah. And he's adamant now that Roxana, she's definitely covering for someone, and he's decided he's going to go and interrogate her after the morning briefing, going over everything he knows about the recon unit she's in charge of, and it basically boils down to one man, Konig Henniker.
He's the spy.
Yeah, and as he's putting all the pieces together, the adapt from earlier, who he gave the better luck next time note to, arrives and says, "Here we go. We've examined it, and we've got a match." And the handwriting comes down to Konig. The writing comes down to Konig Henniger, and Chain orders his men to go and collect Roxana. So at that exact moment, there's a knock at Uxor Roxana's door, and when she opens it, Sonica and Bronzy are there, and they tell her that Sonica has been given charge of the clowns, but there's been a technical error, and they've accidentally put under her command, which is wrong because they're supposed to be under the command of Hononmu, and they need her just to come down, do a bit of admin for them, fix it, and then they'll go on their way.
Yeah, that's it.
And she's like, "Yeah, I'll come with you." And then she said, "Well, why has it taken 2 hetmen to come and do this?" And they said, and Bronzy says, "I'm just here for moral support," which is
very Bronzy. Very Bronzy.
And she does question it in her mind, but leaves it. And as they're walking up on one of the upper floors, they notice down in the courtyard a group of Lucifer Blacks moving quite swiftly. And the 2 hets try and play it off and get her to ignore it. but she realizes they're actually heading towards her quarters. And she says, no, I'm going to go back. And as she turns, Bronzy's blocking her path and says, actually, Henneke sent us to get you because Chain suspects you of being the spy. And they're coming to interrogate you. So she agrees to go with them as it's the safest option. And they make off. And Chain and his men get to the quarters. And with a little bit of gentle persuasion, they gently interrogate the aides and figure out what's going on.
crushes gently. Okay, like the way they describe it is that Chain, like if you were looking at it from like outside, you would see. So it's like her most experienced like part of her sept is the one he interrogates. I can't remember her name, and it's just like it looks like he's holding her face as if a lover would, but actually he's exerting like enough pressure that it's like it's putting her in physical pain, like she's in real bother.
And to be fair to her, like at first she says, I'm in her mind, she's like, I'm not giving you up. And then as soon as he touches her, she's like, yeah. What do you want to know?
yeah, that's fine.
So she spills the beans, but they've already got down to Transport Bay, and Bronzy uses a fake identity card and is able to gain access to a desert crawler, and they pile in and make off into the desert. And she sort of says, how do you know Koenig? And they say, we can't say. It's an army intelligence thing. And she actually immediately realizes that they're lying to her. And she thinks, actually, this is a cabal thing, and they're gonna take me out to the desert and kill me.
I'm done.
And they don't go too far. They go about 2 kilometers away, and pull up. And as they stop, 4 fully armored Astartes emerge out of the sand, just out of nowhere. It sort of reminds me of Toy Story out in the garden, where the toys come to life and they just start creeping up. They kindly take the Uxor away and they say thank you to the Hetman. And Sonika says, is she going to be okay? Or are we going to be okay? And the Astartes say, just stick to your story, you'll be fine. But if things go wrong, we'll come and save you because you're part of the gang, you're one of us.
You're our friends.
And so they get back into the crawler and make their way back towards the camp. But as they're coming in, they're stopped at gunpoint by the Lucifer Blacks, and they get out with their arms up and are arrested. And Bronzy says, is this to do with the Uxor Roxana getting away? And they say yes. And he says, well, if it's to do with her, maybe you can tell me where she's gone. And sticking to his story and playing the role of spy quite well.
They said another good example of Bronzy, playing up. He loves it.
It's like he's born for this. And that rolls us into later that evening into chapter 11, and a bit of time has passed, and we join Chain as he's reporting to Namatjira that he has now released Bronzy and Sonika. And the story goes, they got there first and took the Uxor for private interrogation, as the Geno like to investigate themselves.
Keep it tidy in-house.
And they're actually quite embarrassed because she was able to escape out into the desert because they underestimated quite how powerful she was. Although no one suspects she's going to survive out in the desert for long, and they'll probably just find her bones soon enough. And he's accepted the story of the Hetman, but he's not silly. He's keeping them under strict observation.
And I think it's at the point where he says like he can't disprove it as such because the bio readers that they have to use to take out the things is like it all checks out because there's interference due to the sand and stuff like that, so they can't quite disprove it, but it's because they've got all of their little secret Alpha Legion bio passes that they're able to kind of game the system, as it were.
Yeah, they've been given the cheat codes to the game, really.
Indeed.
And they're getting around everything. But Chain's not stupid. He still knows something's going on, and he's not gonna ignore it. Although he's not got any reason to keep him detained. So Bronzy and Sonica are now off drinking to their success and saying goodbye, because Sonica's getting ready to go and join the clowns. And again, Sonica's saying that he's uncomfortable with the role that they've been assigned of playing spy. But Bronzy tries to reassure him. They have a little bit of a not really a tense moment, but well, you're in it now, so start acting up moment. And Hon and Moon and Boone arrive, and she's not happy with the way things went. They made a complete scene. But Boone's actually quite happy because they've outed Roxana. Whether true or not, she's been outed as the scapegoat. And having been seen to chase after her and be arrested while they're looking for her, that's cleared the regiment's name. In his opinion.
They're all clean. Boone has said is like whether it's through luck, idiocy, or design. They've this has worked out okay for us. And I think it's at that point, because I think Bronzy's like, let's have a drink, and Boone to begin with is not sure. He's like, he doesn't quite trust it, and then as he thinks about it, he has a quick drink with Bronzy, and he also asks him again about Pius, and at that point Bronzy says, he's clean, it's not him. So everything is, even though it's not as far as the Chiliad is concerned, everything's tied up nicely in their eyes.
You get the feeling like Chain's after the truth, but Boone's after just not getting the target off his own back.
That's it.
There's an answer. He doesn't care if it's right, but he'll go with it.
It's good enough, and it looks good on paper.
So Sonica, he leaves, and Honan goes with him to say goodbye, and sort of says to him, "Is there anything that you're not telling me?" And he says, "No." Reassures her, everything's okay. So she wishes him luck, gives him a kiss on the cheek, and he goes on his way. And back out in the desert, in a cave, Roxana is sat on a stool with her hands cuffed behind her back. And she's greeted now by a Alpha Legion Astartes, who introduces himself as Alfarius.
Quelle surprise! What a surprise! There's no doubt at all that this is definitely Alfarius, without a doubt. Who knows?
We'll take their word for it. They've got no reason to lie. And Alfarius asks her about Conning, and she says, and he tells her that his real name is actually John Grammaticus. And she's shocked because although she's aware of the Cabal, that she didn't know his real name. And then he actually asks her about the Cabal, and she says, "I don't know anything about that," and tries to cover still. And then Alfarius brings in their psyker, Shay.
Shay.
And says that Shay's going to help clear your doubts. And it's very ominous and left as is. And we obviously know what Shay can do. She's obviously at a level similar to John, powerful psyker, and we'll leave that to our imagination for now. Back inside the palace, John Grammaticus is now back. He's disguised as an adept and heads into the security office with the intent to access the database. And he sat there looking at records of the Lucifer Blacks and their interest in Roxana. And at the same time, Chain's actually in there just doing his duties. and he notices this adept sat there and asks him what he's doing. And John says that he was ordered by his commander in the Geno 5 to just look at some records.
Yeah.
So Chain takes his word for it and lets him carry on.
It's pretty bold, this of Grammaticus.
Yeah, he's really like leveled up now, hasn't he? Like,
yeah.
And he's able to sort of keep the facade going for a while, and he goes through and finds two names of particular interest, our friends Sonica and Bronzy. And just as Chain is speaking to one of the senior adepts, he just gets up and walks out. And as he leaves, Chain stops talking to the adept and realizes that something didn't feel right about the guy who just got up and left.
Yep.
So he pops out into the corridor, but it's already empty. So yeah, John is back on the chess table, and right under the nose of the guy he's been taunting for a while.
Yeah. It's a very, very bold move. Very bold.
But he's pulled it off.
He has. Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, he did indeed.
So that's the end of chapter 11, and we're going to move on to almost the climax now of part 1, as we enter the Black Dawn. And if you're not reading the books, and you're quite happy to listen along, this is one, maybe go and read chapter 12 along with us, because a lot happens, and it's pretty epic.
It's a very it's a really good it's a really good chapter. Really, we get, I don't know whether we get that many answers. We get some answers. It's starting to move in that direction.
Yeah.
But it's also a whole lot of stuff happens in this chapter.
Yeah. So we'll get straight into it, and we are in one of the outer encampments on the front lines. We are with the Zanzibari Hort, and we join a soldier called Lek Tanhar. The name's not important because he's overseeing the morning watch, and all the exchanges are happening, and between the guards taking over from the night shift, and he notices something in the distance. So he picks up his binoculars and has a closer look, and immediately he has a mass panic, and he screams at the Vox officer to raise the Lord Commander and sound the alarm. But before he gets an answer, he is dead. And that is all we get from that.
Yep.
A kilometre away, with the Fawns Hort, Commander Cherika, name's not important, asks one of his men if he heard a sound of a wave crashing, as if they're hearing the sea.
Yeah.
And this guy says no. And they look out into the distance, and as they get a good look, they have time to activate their armor, but then they're killed too.
Yeah.
That's all we get of that. And those encampments were well out on the edge of everything, and more central to the military structure. Bronzy is rudely woken up by one of his bashors, who kicks him right in the arse and tells him to get up, which is not normal protocol.
No.
Kicking your seniors. And the guy sort of says, no, seriously, get up and come outside. So Bronzy gets up, pulls his boots on and goes outside and just sees absolute pandemonium.
Yeah.
The army's scrambling. Everyone's running to whatever vehicles they've got. Everyone's getting lined up. And he immediately kicks into action. We haven't seen this side of him yet, but he goes proper into his rank. He's barking out commands, getting people into order, without missing a step.
I really enjoyed that part of it, actually, because up to this point you've seen maybe the more jovial Bronzy, like the charismatic, the Bronzy that just is maybe a bit of a comedian. Whereas now, as you said, it's you see the real soldier in him. He's as you said, it's almost like he's straight into it. you can see why, like, he's almost, you can see the leader of men in him, if that makes sense, because he's getting everyone ready in the Jokers, so there's the Jokers, ready to go and on a war footing, like, so that they can actually, muster some form of response to whatever's going on.
Yeah.
And it is very good, very good to read.
It's almost like you get the impression that maybe he's in charge because of his age and how long he's been there, and then you get this scene. It's like, no, he's in charge because he's in charge.
Yeah.
But there's a reason that everyone's panicking, because in the distance there is an overwhelming Nurthine force coming towards them, and they're just the big cloud of dust behind them, and he notices that many of the cavalry are riding these giant lizards.
Yeah.
And there's a dust cloud of an avalanche. Sort of almost feels like, the way it's described is like it's almost carrying this wave of warriors towards them.
I think it's a bit of air magic going on. Like that's coming forward with this stuff. And there's they describe it as that there's the smell of, is it wormwood? I think they use the term, like, and it's like, and what we know of other, chaotic forces is that there is often, a sensory angle to it. So, like in the Lair temples, for example, there's this strange sickly perfume smell. Yeah, and it's the same here, is that it seems to be something that comes along with certain parts of chaos, is that there's some sort of fragrance in the air, and that's very much the case for this Nurthine assault.
So panic sets in, and from what he can tell, just by I don't know if he's got his binos, having a quick look, he can see, like, all around the outskirts things are being overrun, and there's just wreckage. And he estimates that he's got about 5 minutes till this wave hits his location.
Yeah.
So he's getting out battle orders. He's on the Vox, and starts demanding some support, and told that, no, it's not coming. No, he's told it is coming. Sorry.
It's coming. Yeah,
it is coming. It's going to be a little while, but it's on its way.
I think, I don't know if we know it at this point, but up front, the Ultramars who were ahead of them have been broken, and they're charging back towards the lines as Bronzy's getting his. I think at this point, the mortar rounds are already firing off, and he's getting his troopers ready. It turns out, you find out that the Jokers are a crack shot, so they're all, amazing shots. And they're all getting ready to start, frontline fire, rear line fire at the approaching Nurthine horde.
Yeah, and that's it, and they're getting ready. But in the command center, as we described earlier, the Uxors are sort of pushing the tabletop pieces around like in World War II. Well, that's really kicking off now. All the Uxors are sort of in there. Major Devs barged in, demanding answers. How did we not know this was coming?
Yeah.
And it's suggested that this dust cloud they thought was a storm was actually hidden the main force from detection. And the way that this has hit them is the reason, like, they sort of cut off, they saw it, then they were dead, is because this wave's hitting them like a tsunami.
Yeah.
And just absolutely, there's no defending from it.
There's one of the Uxors says, like, she knows her unit is gone.
Yeah, she feels it. And now obviously they're all panic. How do they defend it? Let's get some battle plans in place. And as we've said, Bronzy doesn't mess about. The Jokers don't mess about. They're Jokers in name only, and they're now formed up in perfect formation to a man. He's got some regular infantry on each side of his flanks to support him, but he knows that he doesn't have the firepower to defeat what's coming, but hopes that they can hold off long enough for the palace to prepare a counter-attack. And like you say, so the wave of Nurthine's closing in, mortars are going off, heavy guns are going off, and they've got the original, like the outskirts, the survivors are trying to get through the lines, and the Jokers start firing, and like you say, crack shots. they don't mow down their own men, much of their own men, or if any, and they start taking down the first lines of Nurthine. But this force is relentless, so pikemen come to the front and set, brace for impact, and then the Nurthine and the Geno 5 come together like absolute anarchy. The Jokers are able to hold the line, but the force is so overwhelming that that they eventually have to break, and Jokers just start. They get cut down, and this is like proper war scene now. And we get. I quite like this bit. So this next little scene is like a classic trope that you see in almost every war film, and like Saving Private Ryan's the one that came to mind, because Bronzy gives an order for everyone to switch their blades, turns to like his next in charge and says, "Get this order out." And as he turns back, the guy's got a dart through his head. And it's like, you can just see it. It's like right on the beginning when they're storming the beach on Saving Private Ryan, and he's telling his radio guy to get the message. And when he looks back, the guy's head's caved in. So it's like, and you get that in all the good war films. So it's just like one of those little things that you can't leave out. I quite like that.
I mean, the entire description here, because I think, I don't know whether it happened before this, but because one of the bits that I think was quite interesting is that Namet Jira's response is, this is where you actually see him as a like, the reason he's in charge where he is because rather than shouting the odds and screaming and panicking and stuff like that, he's not worried about that. He's cool and calm, and he's just taking in the information. The recriminations will come later. Is what he says. And
that's what, like, Hodden's watching him, because she's seen him when it's not kicking off, he does scream and shout.
He's an arse,
But here he's just sitting there listening nice and calmly to the reports coming in. And he's not happy, but he knows, like, I think he's talking to Dev, and he's saying, like, this is a surprise attack. Like, the Nurthine know that they're outgunned, and they can't win overall. They've launched this first attack to break the siege on the harbour, but he thinks it's a suicide attempt. But he respects them because they're going to go down fighting. Because of the surprise attack, he's going to suffer for it in losses, but eventually they'll win. And then sort of as a part into Dev, he sort of says, "Do you want to contact the Alpha Legion and find out if they're going to bother getting involved?"
Find out where they are, indeed. And then so I can't remember that happened, but back to the scene with Bronzy, and like, as I said, I love the bit, like, they're describing the pikemen, and they've got these massive pikes that have got like counter gravity weights, like, just in your head you can just imagine the size of these huge pikes. And like they're just describing like the volume of Nurthine that are like piercing themselves like kebabs effectively on these giant pikes to get into the Jokers. And it's like, the way it's described is that there's like, I think it said for every one they cut down, there are two behind them. For every two they cut down, there are another five. And it's just like this relentless wave of Nurthine troops just charging in to try and overwhelm the Jokers. And as I said, they've unloaded so much stuff. And then I think this is, you might tell me if I'm wrong, if not, we'll wait. This is the bit where we get, like, so Bronzy's done all the command, and then he's into the thick of it.
He's well into it, isn't he? And the thing is as well, like, you forget, because the Geno, they're not normal humans either. They are advanced, so they can take some of it, but they're now getting overwhelmed by, like, the sheer force of it, even though they're built for this. But like, I mean, if you want to go for it, because this is Bronzy's moment now.
So it like says, like, he says, we're in it now, and instinct kicks in. Like, he's sort of like, you can almost see the dust and the dirt and the blood and the bodies, and he's got his saber, and he's chopping chopping Nurthine down left and right, and it's like, I think it says within a couple of minutes he's already expended his las pistol. and he throws it at the head of just launches at the head of a Nurth, hits someone in the head, and then he just hacks him up afterwards just to take him down.
Yeah.
And he's shouldering into people and stabbing them, and he's got his own other sidearm, which is like a 6-shot, like can't remember what they describe it as, but it's like this 6-shot that he packs himself with. It sounds like it's like a musket or something, but like he's got his like 6-shot that he can fire all 6 shots at once, but he's in the midst of it, and he's just fighting, taking people down. And I think 1 or 2 or 3 of the Nurth come at him with their falcons, and like he manages to get one off of them, and he's chopping them up, and he's going to work on it, and he's already had like 1 arrow sort of slice his thigh, another one go into his boot, and that's what kind of sends him into this instinctual, you know, if I stay here, I'm dead, so I'm just going to go into it.
Yeah. And
I think at one point it says like he feels like he's been fighting for hours, but it's only like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And he's just killed. He's just done work. Like he's really gone to town. It's a great thing to read. And then I think it's at this point before he takes down like the big crocodile thing, that his Bashor, is it Lon? Sort of shoots one of the Nurth before he can land a blow on Bronzy, and says, "Come on, Het, we've got to." That comes after.
So it's like the big lizards come out of the dust, and there's like one, and it's got like a bunch of archers riding on the back of it. So he uses
very Lord of the Rings.
He gets his 6-shooter out and blows like a hole in its head and brings it down. And like say, so this, and then it's like before he can reload, he gets jumped. He's managed to kill another Nurth, and then 2 more come out, and he gets hold of the falcons, headbutts this guy, is able to swing him round, so this Nurth guy takes the blow from the next guy. And then he, like, as that guy goes down, he gets the falcons, puts it through the one who killed that one, swings it a third, but he misses. And as this guy is going to kill him, that's when the Bashor manages to pull him out the way, blow this guy's head off, and he says, "Right, let's get out of here. Like, we're not going to last." And
then there's a moment, isn't it? Bronzy has like a moment of clarity, and he can see that the Jokers have they've been broken down into like skirmish units. They're not a unit anymore, and they have to fall back.
And I think he would have stayed there and fought to the death if it wasn't for that. He would have been maybe lost, but luckily.
Oh, he was in the madness at that point, wasn't he?
yeah, definitely. He was in, and I think to a point he must have been enjoying himself. But we have to leave him for the time being while he falls back, and we go back to Sonica. And he's with the clowns now, and he's waiting to go and be put out on one of the flanks. And he's asked a couple of times to go out and back up the Jokers, because I think he's thinking of Bronzy really, and wants to get out to him, but he's been told no, you must stay where you are. And it's estimated that the fighting's going to get to him within the hour. And he's sort of pondering everything that's led him up to this moment, like obviously the execution of Shaban and why he's there, and this is when his Bashor. Oh, so quickly, the Bashor who saved Bronzy was the one called Tick, and this one who's with Sonica is Lon, and he comes up and says, "Fucking Strabo's looking for you." And and so Strabo comes up, and he's got a hetman with him who Sonica doesn't recognize.
Yes. And
this hetman says, "I need to talk to you in private." So they go off to the side, and he said, "Oh, I don't actually recognize you." And he said, "Well, you may actually know me as Konig Henniger." What? And Sonica reaches for his pistol, and Grammaticus says, "Look, don't bother. My real name is actually John Grammaticus, The Black Dawn is coming. Take me to the Alpha Legion. And yeah, so little cliffhanger for the time being, because we get to go quickly back to Bronzy and find out, yes, some survivors did get away from the main fighting. I think they just ran for 30 minutes straight, and they collected survivors as they went and got out.
They made all sorts of little units, isn't there? There's like artillery units and Ultramars and all various different bits and pieces, and Bronzy's like making sure they're all armed, and you know, even if they've only got knives and sharpened sticks, he's making sure that they're armed. Yeah,
because they grabbed a bunch of like the heavy gunners who aren't actual soldiers. They're just like rear units, and these guys are all like shell shocked, and it wasn't supposed to get this close.
They're all shaken, aren't they? They're you know, even the jokers that left them with him, like, you know, they've been in the thick of it. That they're all as you said, shell shocked. They're all suffering the effects of like high intense combat.
Getting on the peck.
Yes. Am I right in thinking that in the scene earlier where they were putting the battle plans together, or Namatjira was in, that's where they'd also mentioned Jevev's the Princeps. So the Titans are inbound. But
and Dev was happy.
Yeah, Bronzy doesn't know this.
Yeah.
Neither does Sonica, but we know that Titans are inbound.
Yes. Because here now, when they managed to get up, the way I pictured it, it's not. He's off to the side. The way I pictured it, they're up in maybe some cliffs or something.
But there's the groundwork, isn't it? They talk about the groundwork, and where the Jokers were deployed, it was like on one flank there was the groundwork, which is obviously this big fortification that's been put in place by you know, whatever engineers are out with them, and then on the other flank, that's where it was exposed with that's where the Ultramars were. And so I the same thing as I feel like they've kind of retreated up the groundwork and away. It's like almost like a basin or valley where the Nurthine are coming through, and they've kind of gone up and over to the side.
And they're sort of like, they're taking shelter. Everyone get your food and water, get some peck, get your nerves back together. And he sees out in the distance is another horde and lined up in formation. And he's thinking, well, why are they just standing there? Why aren't they attacking? And then out of the dust, we hear the silhouettes of 3 Titans. And they immediately begin firing onto the Nurthine in absolute devastation. We go, but then we jump away from there and go back to Sonica, who is taking Grammaticus down to the vehicle bay, and grabs hold of a secure Vox, and uses his new credentials to make contact with the Alpha Legion, and basically says, look, Grammaticus is here. He's handed himself in.
Yeah, I've got it.
He's ordered to leave the battle and bring him in, which he protests at first. He says, I can't leave. Like, this is where I need to be. And they say, no, you're Alpha Legion now. That's where you need to be.
Yeah.
So he does what he's told. They get hold of a transport, and he takes him out into the desert. And John's explaining to him that there's a reason this is all happening. I'm trying to prevent a war. The Nurthine are about to destroy the Imperials with a Black Dawn, and I need to get this message to the Alpha Legion. And he asks Sonica, is Roxana alive? And he says, I think so. The last time I saw her, she was with the Astartes, and he sort of regrets handing her over the way that he did.
Yeah.
He sort of thinks it was for her own safety, because if Chain had worked out this connection, she probably would have been killed.
Absolutely, yeah.
And they arrive at the RV point and find that the ruin with the mark of the Hydra burnt into the brickwork, which looks fresh. And when they enter, they are greeted by Peck, Herzog, and Alvarius.
Well, Grammaticus is pretty sure it's Alfarius.
Yeah,
but he's sure, but he's not sure, and therefore, can we be sure? We can't.
No. So Alfarius, who thinks Alfarius, tells Grammaticus to go with him so they can talk. And Sonica turns to leave so he can return to his men. And the Astartes say, no, you can't. You're staying with us. We need to know.
It's a bit cryptic, isn't it? Because they say to him, like, the problem is that how did he know you were an operative?
Yeah.
And so now you can't go back, and it's like, oh yeah, that's some 3D chess the old Alpha Legion are playing. They've got us there.
Yeah. And that brings us to the end of that chapter. And now we're going to move into the last part now of part 1, chapter 13.
And you may have noticed that even though we've been talking about this for over an hour now, but this section really feels like it's barreling along with some pace.
Yeah. What is it? A day and a bit we've been doing this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But things have escalated from trying to play chess with each other and see who's who to full-out wars just come out of nowhere and forced everybody's hands.
What's quite interesting as well, the title of this chapter, where it's just like the last day on Nurth, and you're like, okay, something's going to happen here then.
Yeah. And it's quite a brief chapter actually. It's very to the point. So Alfarius, we think, takes Grammaticus and Sonica down into the tunnels, and they come out into sort of a big open bowl that's been carved out, open air, and the sky has turned a really dark, unnatural color.
Yeah.
And Sonica gets this weird feeling as if the planet itself is sick. And sort of John notices and says that the sky is unraveling. And in this cave, there are 20 alphas present, and John can feel at least 2 psychers out of sight, keeping tabs on him, and gently probing him. And he tries to talk to Alfarius, but Alfarius ignores him and walks off, and goes over to another Astartes who matches him in size and build. And Grammaticus is looking and thinks maybe these guys are twins.
Yeah.
And he reaches out with his mind, but he's just completely shut down by Shay, who just drops him onto his face.
It's like sort of it's like spasms, doesn't he? He's like into an attack, like some sort of embolism.
Yeah, and like Sonica thinks that he's been killed. Like he runs over him, puts him into sort of like a recovery position, and is like checking on him. And they come over and say, "Don't worry, he's all right." Like, he can handle it.
He tried to pry where he shouldn't have pried, and Sonica's like, he didn't do anything, and he says he didn't do anything that you can see.
Yeah, and he sort of gets his second wind, or gets his wind back eventually, and he's looking at the 2 Astartes and says, "You guys must be twins." And they say, "Look, Astartes, we all look the same to humans." And John says, "No, I'm not just a human. I can tell the difference. It's my job. Like, this is why I'm here." But they refuse to answer him. And he says, "Which one of you is really the Primarch?" But again, they ignore him. And they sort of say, "Why have you gone from ignoring us and running away when you were with us, and all of a sudden now you're back surrendering?" And he tells them, "Look, the Cabal have ordered me to come to you. I need to tell you, you need to get off this planet, because this planet is going to be dead by the end of the day." And at first, I don't think they really buy into him.
No, they're a bit like, they can't work him out, right? Because again, all of this up until now, it's all been everyone not wanting to be manipulated. So the Cabal don't want to be manipulated. The Alpha Legion don't want to be manipulated by the Cabal. No. And the Namatjira and the Imperial Guard don't want to be manipulated by
anyone,
spies and the Alpha Legion. And it's like someone because they're all manipulating, they all want to manipulate each other. Someone's got to get manipulated somewhere, otherwise this won't move forward.
Yeah. And we sort of very briefly will leave them and join Bronzy for a second.
Yeah.
Because Bronzy's been sat in relative safely with his men, and they've just watched these Titans completely obliterate the Nurth attacking force, and push them back, because.
And they say like the perfumed mist or whatever. It's almost like the Titans were like a breeze out of the desert, and it just kind of it all retreats back in the wake of these like monstrous Titans, as it were. And I think there's a description where Bronzy sees like one of these big crocodilians like just get blown to shit by one of the Titans, and like there was an interesting description in this part actually where it sort of said the troops could feel the elation of the Titans showing up, but at the same time also like the sheer fear and terror of seeing these like mass war machines of destruction. It was quite an interesting. I just thought it was quite interesting to hear that kind of, that angle of it. That up until now we've only really, heard about the, Marines who see Titans. They're just like the Titans, whatever. Yeah. Whereas this is a very human response to these terrifying war machines.
I don't think you could really. I mean, you can't really comprehend it, could you?
No,
because these things they're not just big, they're ridiculous in size.
I'm trying to even think. It's like I'm sure you could look it up on somewhere, but like it's almost like if the Shard up in London kind of stood up and started stomping towards you, you'd be like, and I don't even know if that's big enough. Like that's they're huge.
Yeah. And then they normally have something mounted on top of them, like a church or something, just to add to it.
Yeah, it's like just insane, like how big and like
And there's 3 of these things in this one area. So I mean, these guys have witnessed something that.
Yeah. When Titans turn up, it's only going one way.
Yeah. So they've watched this. He gets all of his band of survivors and says, "Get your kit. We're going back to the palace. We're going to get new orders, and we're going to regroup and redeploy."
Yeah.
And as they start moving off, he sort of looks up as well, and he sees that the sky is now completely black, and the light is just gone.
Yeah.
And it's not even like a nighttime; it's just black. And Grammaticus now, he is basically pleading his case, and he's telling the Alpha Legion, like, look, I don't really care. You just need to flee. You need to get off this planet. The reason that it's all looking dead is that the Nurthine have activated a black cube. It's a chaos weapon activated on sacrifice of blood, and basically that assault was their sacrifice, and you've helped them achieve it by obliterating and wiping them out. Like, you've done what they wanted. The cube's active, this planet's dead. You need to flee with me. I'll take you to a place of revelation, and you can meet the Cabal, and you need to go back and convince Namatjira to retreat, but I don't really care. If he says no, leave him. He's not important. You're important. The Alpha Legion is too valuable to lose on this planet. And Alpharius refuses. He says, we're not fleeing, we're not retreating, just based on your word. We're oathed to this moment. And out of everybody, it's Sonica who cuts in and says, actually, you can flee. Like, the Alpha Legion will do what needs to be done. You don't need to stick to traditional warfare. My dead dancers can attest to this. Like, you don't need to stick to the script. And after a couple of seconds, Alpharius orders an evacuation, gets his men into gear. He says, yes, I'll go and meet Namatjira within 30 minutes. The rest of you get out of here. And turns to Grammaticus and says, if this is a trick, he will execute him on the spot, and then hunt down the Cabal.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the end of part 1.
Yeah, what a roller coaster!
I know.
Like, it's started off, as I said, like a bit of a spy thriller, and then this last part gets into the action, gives you the payoff, answers a few questions, sets a few more. Like, this is why I think I said at the beginning of this, three episodes ago, it was like, or 2 episodes ago, that it could almost be 2 books.
Definitely, yeah.
Because there's been enough content here for 1 book in itself, and like it's like, okay, where do we go next? And that's where you get all of the payoff. Right now, with you're almost like, wow, like end of a battle, take a breath, see what's what, like, because it's, as I said, it's left on a cliffhanger as well. We don't know. We know the Alpha Legion's like, fine, okay, we'll leave, and I'll go and speak to Namatjira. We don't know if they're going to leave. We don't know how they leave. We don't know what happens after this. All we know is that's it. Grammaticus has made contact with the Alpha Legion. All it took was the possible destruction of a planet, and there we go. Like, this is where we're at.
Yeah, like, I'm looking forward to getting on to the next part, because we will get some payoff, definitely. And maybe some answers. You'll have to tune in and find out what happens, I guess.
Indeed.
So we'll wrap it up. We'll quickly do our shameless plug. I won't go too much into it, but yes, join us on Patreon.
Yeah. If you want to see part 4, become a Patreon. No, I'm joking.
That's actually we'll table that. You can get all of our videos except the last part of the book, and that'll cost you £50. And see this channel just plummet through the ground after that. But yeah, so if you want to support us and you enjoy what we're doing and want us to, like I said already, just improve the way we do things, then consider subscribing to us. And then the other thing is, if you're going to go buy any of your hobby stuff, and you go through Element Games, if you'd like to use our link that's going to be in the comments or in the description, you'll still get your discount. It won't cost you anything else, but it will just help us out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And please go check out the rest of our videos. If you like YouTube, we've obviously got our podcast that we do with the rest of the guys. You can go back and look at the rest of the Omnis. We've started at the beginning of the Horus Heresy, and now you're here with us, and hopefully we'll continue all the way to the end and on to Siege of Terror and beyond. We'll be a lot older, grayer by then. And then we've got our other videos, the Hobby Bashing and the Archaeotech simulations. Go and check those out. And I think that's all from me. Unless you want to add anything, Shane, we'll say goodbye.
No, that's well, the usual, actually. Like, share, subscribe. If you've got any mates that are into it and they think they might like it, give it a share. It always helps us out, brings new people to the channel. So please do.
That's it. Cool. Right. Well, we'll see you in a week or 2 weeks for part 4.
Yep.
As always, we would like to thank you for listening to our Iron and Ceramite podcast. If you liked us, then you can also find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and any other good podcast services. Just remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.